Before you scroll away, take one slow breath and stay here with me, because this is not light, and it did not arrive by accident. Something has been trying to reach you for a long time, not through noise, not through easy words, through silence, through distance, through all the things that were never fully said. And what is coming now carries weight. It carries delay, regret, fear, and the kind of truth people only face when they realize time is no longer standing still for them. There is someone connected to you who has been holding something deep in their chest for much longer than you know. They hid it, they buried it, they tried to live around it. But what gets pushed down does not disappear. It waits. It grows. It becomes heavier in the dark. And now, something inside them has shifted in a way they can no longer ignore. So stay with this until the end, because what you are about to hear may explain more than their actions ever did. And if this feels strangely close to home, keep listening, because the deepest part of this message is still ahead. There is a person in your life who has been keeping something locked inside their heart for far longer than they would ever admit out loud. This did not begin yesterday. It was not sudden. They did not wake up one morning and simply stop feeling. Their heart did not turn cold in one clean moment. What happened was quieter than that. Slower, more hidden. They pushed their emotions down because they did not know what else to do with them. They covered them up and told themselves silence would be easier, safer, more manageable than honesty. But buried feelings do not vanish. They stay alive under the surface. They gather weight in the dark. Then one day, without warning, everything rises at once. And that is where this message comes from. Not from confidence, not from peace, not from someone who has everything figured out. It comes from fear, from panic, from the painful realization that too much time may have passed, and something precious may be slipping away for real. That is what has started pressing on them now. And once that pressure begins, it does not let a person rest the way it used to. Something changed in them recently, and it changed hard. Maybe they saw something that reminded them of you. Maybe they heard your name when they were not prepared for it. Maybe life got quiet enough that the truth finally became louder than all the distractions they had been using to bury it. Whatever the trigger was, it shook them. It broke the safe numbness they had been hiding inside. One thought hit them with full force. They may lose you in a way that cannot be undone later. That thought did not come gently. It came during the heavy hours, during the quiet, during those empty moments when the phone stays still and the room feels too silent. Other people started feeling shallow. Noise stopped working. Daily routines stopped covering the truth. And in that stillness, they had to face something they had been avoiding for too long. No one else carries what you carry. No one else listened the way you listened. No one else understood them without needing every feeling explained in full. No one else gave comfort without pressure. No one else made being seen feel safe. That realization did not just touch them. It unsettled them deeply. So, if you have felt a strange pull in the air lately, this may be why. But listen carefully, because this part matters. What they feel now is not made of love alone. It is also built from fear. Fear of losing something they took for granted. Fear of waking up too late. Fear of realizing that some connections are rare, and once damaged badly enough, they do not simply return because someone suddenly wants them back. If they could speak to you with no pride in the way and no excuses blocking their mouth, they would say something plain. They should have done more. They should have done it sooner. They thought they had more time than they really had. They thought your patience would keep waiting in the same place no matter how long they delayed. They did not fully understand that silence is not neutral. Silence can wound. Silence can change the shape of trust. Silence is still a choice, and choices leave marks. They carry guilt now for not being present when presence mattered. They carry guilt for staying quiet when honesty was needed. They carry guilt for stepping back when courage was the only thing that could have protected what was real between you. And now the cost of that avoidance is no longer hidden from them. They can feel it. Every day they can feel it more. This person does not struggle because they feel too little. They struggle because they feel more than they know how to hold. Opening up would have meant risk. It would have meant uncertainty. It would have meant facing rejection or losing control or being seen more clearly than they were ready for. So they let fear decide for them. They let pride do the talking. They let distance do the work. And they called it timing. They called it confusion. They called it fate. But deep down, it was fear wearing many masks. They kept pushing away the very thing their heart was pointing toward. They told themselves there would be a better moment, a clearer sign, an easier opening. But real moments do not wait forever. And now, those old choices have become consequences they can no longer talk themselves out of. There is another layer here too. They can sense you are not the same now. Your energy has shifted. Your quiet feels different. You may still care somewhere inside, but you are no longer standing in that old, painful place begging life to give you clarity. You are no longer chasing, no longer repeating yourself, no longer trying to prove your worth. That change in you has reached them, and it has unsettled them more than they expected. Stay with this, because what that shift means is bigger than it first appears. What they fear losing is not only you as a person. They fear losing the feeling of being truly seen without harsh judgment. They fear losing the emotional safety they depended on more than they ever admitted. They fear losing that rare space where they could be understood without being forced past their limits too fast. Only now are they beginning to understand that not every bond can be rebuilt once it has been allowed to break. Not every connection can be replaced by someone new. That truth follows them around now. It comes up in quiet moments. It rises when they try to move on and cannot find stable ground. It hits when they compare another person to you and instantly feel the difference. That is why the urgency keeps growing in them. Not because they want control again, not because they want to play games, because they can feel a door moving toward closure, softly, quietly, without drama. And soft closure is the most serious kind. When a heart closes gently, it rarely opens quickly again. They want to reach out, they want to explain, they want to offer an apology that means something, but fear keeps cutting them off before the first word is sent. They build messages in their mind and erase them. They imagine conversations and never have them. They keep waiting for certainty while the pressure inside keeps building. This is not a promise of a perfect ending. It is not a guarantee that everything will be repaired. It is closer to a confession happening at a distance. They know the damage is real. They know delayed truth does not erase past silence. They know apologies alone do not rebuild trust. What they are finally admitting, even if only to themselves, is that treating you like you would always be there was wrong. They did not understand your value until they felt the emptiness left behind by your absence. And when truth arrives this late, it comes with pain attached to it, because now it stands beside the feeling of loss. But what matters most here is not what this means for them. It is what it means for you. This is not asking you to stop your life and wait. It is not asking you to forgive before your heart is ready. It is not telling you to step back into the same hurt just because someone finally became aware of it. It is only revealing what their behavior failed to reveal. You mattered far more than they ever knew how to show. Your absence is louder in their life now than your presence seemed to be when you were still there. What was between you was real. It was simply handled badly. And now the choice belongs to you. Not to their panic, not to their regret, not to the fear finally catching up with them. Right now, this person is sitting with the hard results of who they chose to be when it mattered most. Results are honest. They strip away comforting stories. They remove excuses. They show exactly what silence cost. They are going back through old moments now, and the small things they once overlooked feel huge. They remember how you checked on them without needing a reason. They remember how you could read their mood before a word was spoken. They remember how you stayed steady even when they pulled away. They remember that you moved toward understanding instead of blame. These memories press on them because they reveal something painful. You met them at a depth they had not yet reached inside themselves, and instead of growing toward that depth, they backed away from it. For a long time, they treated distance like protection. Now that same distance feels like exposure. Your silence has changed in a way they can feel. Before, it felt temporary. Now it feels like real space opening up. Before, It felt like a pause. Now it feels like a chapter that may continue without them. They sense you are no longer building your emotional world around their confusion. They sense you are choosing yourself. And that quiet self-respect in you speaks louder than any argument ever could. If this is hitting hard, keep listening, because the next layer goes even deeper. They are also reaching an uncomfortable truth. You never asked for perfection. You never asked them to be flawless. You only asked them to show up when it counted. You did not need constant intensity. You wanted consistency. You did not ask them to become a different human being overnight. You asked them to live like the person they claimed to be. Now they can see how often they chose comfort when courage was needed. They kept telling themselves they were not ready. They created reasons for the silence. They made explanations for why now was never the right time. But readiness does not simply appear one day like a gift. It is a decision, a hard one. And when you were offering care, honesty, and full presence, they did not meet you there fully. That realization hurts now because the opportunity no longer feels the same. They can feel your change in your tone, in your pace, in your calm. You no longer seem willing to fight to be understood by someone who would not meet you halfway. You are no longer trying to earn a place that should have been protected naturally. That changes everything, because now they understand that words will not be enough. They may finally have the words, but you are no longer waiting to be moved by words alone. You are watching for something real, something steady, something lived, not spoken. This is why their energy feels mixed, restless, uneven. Their heart pulls one way, while their habits pull another. They imagine being brave enough to come forward. They imagine saying exactly the right thing. They imagine returning as a better version of themselves. But imagining is easy. Living it is different. Real change asks for repeated action over time. It asks for effort when emotion cools down. It asks for honesty that continues after the first message is sent. Deep down, they know this, and that is where fear grips them hardest, because they understand that if they reach for you now, they cannot come with half-truths and empty promises. They know trust does not reset just because the right words finally arrive late. Once trust changes, the whole shape of the bond changes with it. So they stand at a doorway. Behind them is the old comfort of hiding. In front of them is the risk of being real without protection. If they stay where they are, they may lose you fully. If they step forward, they must face themselves without excuses. That is what they avoided for so long. And that is why the tension around them feels so strong now. It is not random. It is the pressure of truth finally meeting the place where avoidance used to live. What you have been sensing is not meaningless. It is not your imagination making stories out of silence. Something real has shifted. Loss does not always arrive with noise. Sometimes it comes as withdrawal, sometimes as a change in tone, sometimes as a calm that says more than anger ever could. They feel that calm in you now, and it unsettles them. They picture you moving forward with peace instead of bitterness. They picture you no longer needing answers from them. They picture a future where they no longer hold the same place in your life. That thought frightens them more than they expected. Because beneath all of this, they are being forced to see something bigger than the loss of a relationship. They are being forced to see what their fear has shown them about themselves. This was never only poor timing. It was fear of being fully seen, fear of falling short in love, fear of not knowing how to hold something good without damaging it. They look back now on the moments when they could have spoken and stayed quiet instead. Those moments seemed small back then. They feel heavy now. Meanwhile, you did not vanish in one dramatic move. You slowly adjusted to what they showed you was available. You stopped carrying the entire emotional weight. You stopped filling silence with hope. You stopped hurting yourself to keep something alive all by yourself. And they can see that clearly now. Now they understand they cannot simply walk back in through the same open door. You did not collapse when they pulled away. You did not beg forever. You did not lose yourself. You found more of yourself. You protected your peace. You grew stronger in quiet ways, and that has changed the entire landscape between you. It has made their respect for you deeper, but it has also made the stakes feel more real. They know that if they return at all, It cannot be as the old version of themselves. It cannot be casual. It cannot be vague. It cannot be another cycle of almost, maybe, someday, not yet. They would have to come with honesty and with change that can actually last. And that is exactly what makes them feel unsteady. They want closeness, but they fear the responsibility it asks for. They want to apologize, but they fear promising what they may fail to sustain. They want another chance, but they know wanting is not the same as being ready. So the deepest power here is not with their urgency, it is with your clarity. You do not need to rush because they are finally afraid. You do not need to open a door because they finally heard the silence. The only thing you owe now is honesty with yourself. Because the real question was never just whether they feel the loss. The real question is whether anything true, solid, and lasting can grow from what they have finally realized. And that answer will never come from their feelings alone. It will come from what happens next.